All right, this is what you can do about taking control of your own health. This is a podcast for people interested in exploring why we get sick, as well as in learning how to create bodies that are healthy, strong, fit, and disease resistant. I'm Sean McClendon, your host. I'm a certified personal trainer, an author, and a health and fitness enthusiast, as I like to call myself. Thank you for joining me today. All right, so in this podcast, we are excuse me for a moment so I can make sure I get all of my information correct. Okay. So today we're going to talk about, you probably heard here recently, within the past couple of days, the son of LeBron James, otherwise known as Bronny James, collapsed. He went into cardiac arrest, practicing with his basketball team, University, I think, of Southern California. And so the topic for today, we're going to kind of talk about that is, why are our young athletes collapsing from heart problems? All right, so before we get into that, let's talk about our featured book for this episode, which is my book titled What You Can Do About High Blood Pressure. Okay, so most people know high blood pressure is one of the leading killers in the United States and other countries, causing strokes, heart attacks, and kidney disease, just to name a few. But what many people don't know, however, is that high blood pressure is a lifestyle disease, meaning that it's caused by the way we live our lives. So my book, What You Can Do About High Blood Pressure, will empower you with lifestyle changing strategies to lower your blood pressure naturally. The book includes in-depth information about what actually causes high blood pressure, natural ways to lower your blood pressure without drugs, and a 4-week plan I have in there for implementing blood pressure strategies into your lifestyle. Just something that you can follow along. It's not a prescription or anything, because I'm not like a medical professional or anything like that. But just a plan for you to kind of like employ strategies into your life that will actually help you to lower your blood pressure. Okay, so that's all that's about. So main thing is, there are natural ways to control blood pressure that you can start today that we don't tend to have emphasized in society today. So if you're ready to adopt a healthier lifestyle and reduce and possibly eliminate your need for blood pressure medication, this is your book. Okay. So look in the description, so you'll see how to get a copy of the book. I did the research and everything, and I wrote the book several years ago and revised it here within the past year. So get a copy of that book, y'all. It's on Amazon. All right. Also, before we get into it, remember that this information on this podcast is based on personal research and opinion, and is not meant to be a substitute for advice from a doctor or a physician. You're advised to consult your doctor or physician before making any changes to your lifestyle. So that said, what I talk about here with the heart stuff, remember that I'm not trying to make any sort of, saying like I'm some sort of medical professional. But at the same time, I am what I call a health and fitness enthusiast. So I look into these things. I'm curious, and I like to see what the evidence is showing, whether that be science or just observation, because all science is just a study of what people observe, in the natural world. Okay. All right. So why in the world are our young athletes collapsing from heart problems? So I was just kind of going about my merry business yesterday, the 25th of July, and I saw that Bronny James, the eldest son of LeBron and Savannah James, apparently collapsed on Tuesday. What's today? No, or I just say on the 24th, from cardiac arrest during basketball practice. And of course, my heart dropped. It's horrible. I know he just signed on to play with USC. He's a pretty promising basketball player. Obviously, he has the legacy of his father, one of the best to play the game. And then you hear that the dude pretty much almost died. And thankfully, there were medical professionals there to administer whatever aid. And he was apparently in ICU for a little bit. And then he was put into he was in stable condition pretty much very soon after that. So he was in an ICU apparently for too long. But it brought to my mind earlier this year when Damar Hamlin from the Bills collapsed after he made that football tackle and the whole world saw that when he tackled and then he immediately fell out from cardiac arrest. Um, I heard of a soccer student at my alma mater here in Macon, Georgia. A soccer student was playing like a pickup game or intramural game or something like that, and he collapsed and died apparently, unfortunately, during a pickup soccer game. I thought of another basketball player, Sharif O'Neal, the son of Shaquille O'Neal, who plays for the G League, the NBA G League. But a few years ago, it was in the news that he had to have heart surgery. So it's like, and then I've heard of so many other young kids who are playing middle school football or whatever, and they're just collapsing from heart problems, from heart attacks, or from just their heart stop and they die, or they just they are successfully resuscitated either way. But it's like, is this happening more, or what in the world is going on? So as far as whether or not it's happening more, it seems like it. I don't absolutely know that. So I'm not going to make any comments on that. But it does seem like it's happening more. And I surely don't remember hearing about this. But my whole thing has been, well, why is this happening like this? Why is this happening in young, healthy people? Because if possible, we should try to like prevent that. I mean, it's not a trivial thing. It's like these young people's lives are being cut short or being a lot of times altered permanently by, such a horrible happening. To just kind of go along your merry way playing a sport and then you collapse. Just a horrible thing. So thank God that Bronny James was revived and that he's apparently doing well. They're going to see if he's going to play ball afterwards. The cool thing is that a lot of times these people do return to their sport with some precaution, but they do return. This is just very high profile, obviously, because it's LeBron James' son, who's had a whole lot of press around him because of the legacy. So anyway, I did a little research to kind of see like what people attribute this cardiac arrest and heart troubles to in these young people. Before I do that, it is important for me to make a couple of clarifications about the people I mentioned at the beginning of this podcast. So yeah, Bronny James, they don't really know what caused his cardiac arrest yet. So I'm not going to try to make any sort of comment or speculation on that. Damar Hamlin, his cardiac arrest was, from what I've heard in the news, it was apparently cardiac arrest due to that blunt force to his chest. Okay. And Sharif O'Neal, he never experienced cardiac arrest to my knowledge. His heart trouble was associated with a congenital heart defect, like some sort of blood vessel was in the wrong place. That was something that he was born with, apparently. I don't know what happened with the soccer student who went to my alma mater, Mercer University. But I'm saying that, one, so that can be clear, that I'm not just kind of throwing stuff out there and just trying to guess and speculate. But then two, it's important to know that it's different reasons why these young people are suffering these things. So now let's get into the causes that I saw whenever I was looking up, when I was doing research on these heart issues that our young people are dealing with. One of the causes listed was coronary artery disease, CAD, and that essentially just inflammation of and plaque buildup in the arteries that supply the heart with blood. So you have arteries that bring oxygenated blood to the heart, and essentially they get inflamed. Okay, and plaque builds up on the inside of them. Cholesterol and fat and all that type of stuff building up in those arteries. So what happens is those blood vessels get weaker, they get clogged up, and apparently that can be a cause of cardiac arrest. Another one was myocarditis, which has actually been more in the news recently. But myocarditis is inflammation of the lining around the heart. So your heart has, and a lot of your other blood vessels do, body parts, organs, have lining too, but specifically the lining around the heart becomes inflamed. And a lot of times that tends to be attributed to, among other things, viral illness. So you were hearing a whole lot about this due to coronavirus. So that's another thing. There's also something called cardiomyopathy, which is where the heart, one of the ventricles of the heart grows abnormally thick. Now, it's important also to note that with one who exercises a lot, like an athlete, your heart muscle does get a little bit bigger. I think especially if you're talking about like people who run long distance. But cardiomyopathy, from what I've seen, is more so associated. It's kind of like a different kind of muscle growth where the heart muscle increases in size, and I think the flexibility of the heart muscle to pump it decreases, and so your heart isn't able to really beat the way it's supposed to, and I think it can mess up your heart rhythm and stuff like that, and that's actually attributed more so to genetics. Okay, so I've listed those things. Like I said, coronary artery disease. Coronary artery disease, that's kind of like more so when you talk about heart clogging and inflammation and whatnot, that can be attributed for sure to like, lifestyle disease. That's kind of like the same as like a lot of other chronic inflammatory diseases that are caused by, inflammatory lifestyle, inflammatory diet, high stress, and so on and so forth. And then of course the plaque buildup as well, like for sure, a diet that's not balanced, a diet that has a lot of trans fats and unhealthy fats and whatnot in them. Myocarditis, like I said, I know I personally started to hear a lot about myocarditis when COVID really kind of started to spread around. And here's the thing. Now this is kind of controversial as well, and I'm not gonna make a whole lot of comment on it because of how much I don't know. So there is like viral illness a lot of times can cause like secondary kind of like bad effects in the body if it's particularly severe, apparently. I don't know if I should have made that last comment because that may not necessarily be true. But anyhow, where the inflammation essentially secondary after viral illness, comes against a different body part, and in this case, it's like the heart lining, and it can cause the heart to become weaker to the point of apparently even heart failure and whatnot. And but a lot of times that tends to have signs associated with it, like somebody would probably be able to tell, like because they're having shortness of breath and they're very tired and whatnot. But there's debate about apparently one of the side effects, which is supposed to be very rare, one of the side effects even of the vaccine itself, the COVID vaccine, is myocarditis. But again, it's a listed known side effect. As far as like how often it happens, don't know. But that's one of those things listed there as well. And I'll leave my comments there on that because I don't want to get into all the controversy of all that. But just also note that this can also be a result of other viral illnesses like flu, even, for example, like a secondary type of thing. So, these are the reasons apparently that people have listed among the main reasons that young people are kind of having these heart events, that are causing cardiac arrest and stuff like that. So it's crazy. It's crazy. If somebody's born with an issue, it's, aside from taking care of yourself, if you're born a certain way, then you're born a certain way. But the other thought I'm having is, with our young people dealing with these heart issues that have caused us to lose some young people or have them experience this traumatic event, what can be done? So here's my here's where my brain goes. I'm not making any sort of suggestion to you as to what you should do and all that type of stuff. But the best you can do is to take care of your body as best as you know. And that includes our young people. One thing I do know is that with our young people, we tend to think that they can just eat whatever they want to eat and get whatever little bit of sleep that they get. And like they can just kind of take all this bodily abuse when they are in the foundational years of their life, and they really need optimal nutrition in theory even more than we do, because their bodies are growing. They're in their growing stage. When you're an adult, your body's not growing anymore. But when you were a kid, your body's still growing taller and it's developing. Your brain is developing a lot. Your bones, all that kind of stuff are developing a lot. And so the foods that we call kids foods, like soda and energy drinks and pizza and fries and candy and all that type of stuff, that tends to be a lot of what kids eat, and we term it as kids food. And so even our kids, even sometimes in our athletic events and stuff like that, we give our kids a whole lot of sugary drinks and candy and treats and stuff like that instead of like whole foods and whatnot. I'm not saying anything about any of the people I mentioned, like they're not eating these type of things, but I'm saying based on what I do know from being a coach myself for track and being one who participated in athletic events and whatnot, nutrition is not any sort of really consideration when it comes to sports. Not really. Not whole healthy nutrition. And they don't typically make healthy lifestyle recommendations for athletes, which would be good for performance, by the way. So, but even outside of sports, you guys know that we tend to give kids a lot of hot dogs, a lot of hamburgers, a lot of pizza and fries and candy and soda and punch and all these different type of things. And their bodies are being built off of that. Their bodies are being inflamed by those type of things. So what kind of effect is that having on their overall health? So that's one thought I have. We can do better on that front if we want to maybe, protect our kids, their hearts and their bodies overall. I'm not giving a prescription for like what's going to definitely help, but I do know that our bodies in our younger years are for sure built off of our nutrition and our healthy habits or our habits overall. So that's one thing I wanted to note. What are other things that can be done? So exercise, of course, is good for heart health. I recorded a podcast recently where I was talking about wondering whether or not distance running is good or bad for the body. And it's kind of inconclusive. However, I tend to opt for not necessarily doing a whole lot of long distance where you have the heart going and going and going for such a long period of time. Mainly because these days I tend to be interested in something called recovery. Okay? Recovery is when your body repairs from stuff. It's when it repairs from stuff. And what we need to do, especially in our day and age that really values going hard and going ham and all this kind of stuff, we need to value recovery. Making sure in between workouts that there's adequate time to chill, to not really do much of anything physical, to let that body rebuild. Because let's face it, when you're doing very vigorous exercise, basketball is very vigorous, some other, football, other very vigorous activities, you're breaking your body down. And like literally the time where your body gets better is the times between workouts. So that's important to note. So it's really, really important for us, with our young people and with us in general, to really like think about how are we recovering? Are we just going hard every single day? Do we never take a break? If so, you may be skipping your body's opportunities to repair fully. Okay. There's a circumstance known as overtraining, where the body literally, when somebody's working out and going hard all the time, the body actually kind of starts to get really worn down, and the person starts to start getting more injuries and being real tired and all that type of stuff, because the body literally is starving for recovery time. And so your body will start to break down to the point where it's not really repairing much at all. And the only solution really is to get rest. Okay? Muscle grows and strengthens when you're not doing anything with it. The workout is where you actually kind of like stimulate the muscle. And then the in-between time is where you let the muscle recover. Getting good sleep is very important. You know, sleep is, again, that's like the prime time for body repair. Okay. You know, and, you know, one thing I think about, again, I don't know the case of any of these young people whose names I mentioned, but one thing I think about is how, you know, young relatives of mine and other young people I see are constantly on these devices, sometimes all through the night, sometimes sleeping with phones and stuff and not getting any sort of sleep. But sleep matters. Again, sleep is where your body actually does its repair. Okay? So, you know, we got to make sure our kids get sleep, man. And then finally, like I already mentioned, you know, eating healthily. That means eating a lot of fruits and vegetables. Kids don't tend to necessarily, especially if they're active, don't tend to necessarily have to worry too much about carbohydrates. But just as long as they're not eating a whole lot of junk food, a lot of excess starches, you know, a lot of breads and things like that, a lot of that type of stuff that will inflame the body. You know, because you really want to consume a diet that is as anti-inflammatory as possible. Again, that means not too many animal products, not too much of sugar and stuff like that, and avoiding junk food and all that fake stuff as much as possible. So anyway, in essence, I was just kind of looking into this stuff because I'm really tired of seeing, you know, these news stories about our young people suffering cardiac arrest. Why this happens, of course, we don't always know. And I don't necessarily want to speculate either. However, I do know that what we can do, which is what I always want to talk about in this podcast, what we can do about taking control of our own health. We can make sure that we regularly exercise, making sure that, you know, it's okay to go hard sometimes, but making sure we do exercise with full recovery, getting great sleep, which tends to be about 6 to 8 hours for the average person. And eating healthily, a lot of plant foods, especially non-starchy vegetables, and then fruits, you know, lean and animal proteins. If you're, you know, somebody who does that, animal protein, some grains and whatnot. Young people can tolerate those better than we can because they tend to be more active. And especially if there's not like an intolerance to gluten or an allergy or something like that. You know, water, plenty of water and stuff like that. Not necessarily a whole lot of, I would say, Powerade and Gatorade, which they have their benefits, but they got a lot of sugar too. So I don't tend to really recommend those. All right. So anyhow, this is kind of like just me really kind of thinking out loud about Bronny and all these young people with these heart issues and whatnot. You know, definitely prayers going out to, you know, LeBron and, you know, his wife, Savannah, and their family, and all these other people who have suffered in one way or another from these things. And I really pray that we can like stop seeing this stuff. Cause it's crazy, man. All right. But anyway, that's it. I'm gonna let that be it. If you have any comments, I want to hear what you have to say. For sure. So leave your comments. Make sure you like, share, subscribe to this podcast, like and share this episode. Don't forget to get your copy of What You Can Do About High Blood Pressure. And we'll let that be it. Remember, it may not be a whole lot of some things you can't really control, but your doctor is not responsible for your health. You are. So there's a lot about your health that you can, in fact, control. All right? So do it, y'all. God bless you.